Hello, we're halfway through the year, which means it's time to do the mid-year freakout tag. I feel like tags are just very nostalgic, so I thought we would do a YouTube throwback and come film sitting on my bed. So I have all the questions on here. I've got some books to chat to you about, and I have a little Webster sitting here, so if you hear any dog noises, that's who's making them. Let's just start right out with my favorite book of the year so far. This is Gideon the Ninth. I had an absolutely amazing time with this. This was a 5-star prediction. I thought I was going to love this, but it absolutely blew me out of the water. This is lesbian necromancers in space, but it is so much more than that. I feel like when people pitch this book, they really get the tone of the book. You really understand the tone, but I don't think the synopsis does the plot justice because there is such an interesting world in here. Just the lore of this world is so interesting. There's so many different houses to understand. The necromancy is a little bit different in every house. We are really spending this book fully understanding this magic system by pushing it to the edges of what you can do. And I just found it to be so successful in setting up this world and this premise for this now 4-book series that I'm so excited to continue reading. It's dark, it's funny, it's smart. I had a really good time. Favorite book of the year so far. Next up, we have favorite sequel, and we're gonna do more sci-fi for this because I wanna talk about the Murderbot Diaries. This is a series that I absolutely binged, and I actually think it's perfect for this question specifically because book 1 wasn't a 5-star for me, but it had a quality to it that I really thought that something in the series was going to be, and it was. Especially book 2 and this book, which is book 5. This is the only one that I own physically. This is the only full-length novel. The rest of them are novellas, and the audiobooks are really great for these as well. I felt like the ending of book 1 was a little bit rushed. I wanted to spend more time in it, but then the rest of the books, I felt like the novella length was really right for them, and then I'm glad that this book was a full-length novel because there's a relationship, a friendship in book 2 and in this book, and that's the reason why I loved book 2 so much, was that friendship. And I'm really happy that we got this book to explore so much more of that. And I really hope that Martha Wells continues writing in this series because I want more of this friendship. This series is going to come back in a different question, but for now I'll just give you a little synopsis. So we are following Murderbot. Murderbot is a human-robot construct, so they're half human, half AI construct. Murderbot starts as this security unit and then slowly has this found family form. It's a series that really reminded me how much I love sci-fi. Next up is my favorite reread. It is A Psalm for the Wellblood and A Prayer for the Crownchild. This is The Muck and the Robot duology by Becky Chambers. If you've been watching my channel this year, I'm sure you're sick of hearing me talk about these books, but I can't shut up about them. I love these so much. I think a little bit of the reason why I can't shut up about them is because I read them at the end of December and I had already filmed my best books of 2022 video, but I still read them in 2022. So I feel like they're kind of in this book purgatory where I didn't fit them into content when I first read them. So now I feel like I need to make up for it because this would have been my favorite book of last year if I had waited just one more week to film that video. So I really wanted to reread them this year and I'm really glad that I did. The first time that I read these, I read them as audiobooks and I think the audiobook is fantastic. But I really wanted to slow down and annotate and really think about and talk about these books more in depth. So I actually read them with my mom. We read them as a little book club, and that was a really great experience. I think these are really great book club books for a lot of different reasons. A, because we're talking about really existential questions. So the premise of this is we are following this T-Monk sibling Dex as they kind of try to figure out what their purpose is in life. And they have this big career change and they end up being really good at that career change, but they're still feeling unfulfilled and trying to figure out what their purpose is. And they end up running into this robot, Splendid Mosscap. And Mosscap has this big question: what do humans need? Because all the robots went off to live in the forest, to live in the wild, and they haven't had any contact with any humans. And Mosscap is the first robot to come out and kind of interact with humans again. And it has a question: what do humans need? And Dex is trying to also answer a big existential question about what they need in their life and what makes them feel fulfilled and what they need to do in order to find their purpose in life. And they end up developing this really lovely friendship, kind of going on this cozy adventure together while also starting to question the questions themselves. And so I think that whole conversation makes a really great book club. In addition to that, I also love using these books to kind of introduce people vulnerable to things like they, them pronouns and what a society looks like post-capitalism. Before reading this book, I was having a hard time envisioning what a society would look like that was centered on care instead of on capitalism. I found that aspect of this story to be really meaningful for myself and also a really great entry point to have those conversations with other people. I think it can sometimes be difficult to talk about those things intellectually with people that you love and care about, but because being non-binary or living in a post-capitalistic society is not the central theme of this book. That's not what the book is about. There are just elements that are in the world building. I feel like it makes it so much easier to have those conversations and practice using they, them pronouns and things like that. And I'm really grateful to this duology for helping me to do that and introduce other people in my life to those concepts. The next question is the genre that I have been loving or reading the most of this year, and I'm going to put my little Storygraph chart up here so you can see all the genres that I've been reading this year. I think at this point I've read 89 or 90 books, and by far my most read genre is fantasy, followed by LGBTQIA+ books, which isn't really like a traditional genre, but I'm glad I'm reading a lot of queer things. And then after that is sci-fi. And actually kind of going through this list, I'm realizing that I'm talking a lot about sci-fi books in here, which is very interesting because my favorite book of last year was a sci-fi book, How High We Go in the Dark. And I think I'm realizing that I absolutely love sci-fi, but maybe I don't follow enough creators who read a lot of sci-fi. If you have any recommendations, I would love to hear those in the comments, but I've just been absolutely eating up the conversations that we're having in sci-fi books. So that is the genre that I have been really loving. And I think this tag is helping me to realize how much I love that. Also, I'm so sorry if you can hear Webster absolutely snoring. He is being very loud, but he's a very sleepy boy. Okay, new release that I haven't read yet but want to get to. I mentioned that I was loving the Murderbot Diaries. Martha Wells just came out with a fantasy book called Witch King, which I actually just got from the library today. So I'm really, really excited to start reading that. In that book, we're following this demon, and from the things that I have seen, the synopsis that I have read, the sense of humor seems very similar to Murderbot's sense of humor. So I'm really, really excited to dive back into one of Martha Wells' worlds and read a fantasy, because I haven't read any for fantasy before. I've only read the Murderbot Diaries series. So I definitely want to make sure that I get to that soon. And then because I can't pick just one book, I have two other things to tell you about. So next up is This Gilded Abyss. This is by Rebecca Thorne, who wrote Can't Spell Treason Without Tea and A Pirate's Life for Tea, which is this sapphic cozy fantasy series that's quite a bit higher stakes than like Legends and Lattes is. There's a lot more adventuring and there's like dragons and dragon egg subplots, and I found it to be really, really enjoyable as someone who also loves high fantasy. And the author has now come out with This Gilded Abyss, which is like this sapphic fantasy horror. It's quite a bit darker than her other stuff, and I'm really interested in reading it because I am a horror reader as well, and I haven't seen barely anybody talking about this book. I saw a lot of hype for Can't Spell Treason Without Tea, but I haven't seen many people picking up this other book. I think probably because people know this author for cozy fantasy, and this is a bit of a genre departure for her, but I really think that this author and I are really compatible, so I want to pick this up. I want to prioritize this. I just haven't gotten around to picking it up yet, so hoping to put it on a TBR soon. And then the last one is Fourth Wing. I keep hearing everyone talk about Fourth Wing. I heard a ton of like book talk girlies talking about how much they loved this. And I was like, ooh, interesting, maybe. I don't know if it's gonna be for me. So I held off, I waited, and then I saw a lot of negative press. And I was like, okay, maybe not for me. And then I saw a lot of people that I love watching on YouTube read this and actually love it. Like Sarah Without an H was the one who actually convinced me to read this. Her vlog on new releases that she did, I found to be an incredible video. By the way, please go watch that. I'll link it in the description. But she convinced me. I want a good time. I like dragons. I like fantasy. I like fantasy romance. I like watching silly little fantasy romance series on Netflix. I think it's going to be a win for me. I need to get off of my high horse and go read this book so that I can take part in the discussion. Ooh, okay. Then we have anticipated releases for the rest of the year that haven't come out yet. So again, I have a couple to tell you about. First is Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher is my favorite author of all time. T. Kingfisher is the pen name that Ursula Vernon writes under for some of her more adult work. She also has middle grade under this pen name, but things like Sword Heart, things like Paladin's Grace, and my favorite book of hers, The Hollow Places. These two are cozier fantasy romance, and then this is horror. Her horror release of 2023 was A House with Good Bones, and I liked it, but it wasn't like anywhere near as much as I loved The Hollow Places. Even though I liked it, I was kind of bummed that it wasn't a new favorite, so I was really intrigued to see people start to get arcs of this and reviews coming in that it is a lot darker than people expected it to be. I know for some people that's something that they didn't love about it, but I was very excited to hear that. This is sort of like a fairy tale retelling, I think, of Sleeping Beauty, which was one of my favorite movies growing up as a child. So I am even more interested in this now, really excited to see what T. Kingfisher does with this retelling. That comes out in August, I think maybe even on the same day as this next one, or like a week or two before or after. But the next release I'm excited for is Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. I read The Hacienda by this author last year, and it really surprised me with how much I absolutely loved it. I love a good haunted house story, and The Hacienda was just everything that I love in a haunted house book and so much more. It had this really, really interesting like romantic subplot that went along with it that I felt just like tied in really nicely with the whole story. Really excited to see what this author does with a vampire story, because I've been loving vampire stories lately. So that is another one of my most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. The second to last one is Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. This is the prequel to, I have it somewhere here, Legends and Lattes, which I loved. Honestly, I've been wanting to reread this ever since I finished it. Like, I got to the last page and wanted to go right back to the beginning. I loved this so much. So I'm really excited that the prequel is coming out, I think in November. So I think I'll probably reread this before I read that prequel. Our main character, Viv, is an orc who's opening up this coffee shop. No one has ever heard of coffee, but Viv knows of coffee because of this adventure that she went on. She ended up spending a lot of time in this cozy coffee place. And I think Bookshops and Bone Dust is going to be about her first experience with coffee and why she wanted to open up this coffee shop. So I'm really excited to read that one. I think it might be a little bit higher stakes than Legends and Lattes because we are kind of in Viv's previous life when she was more bounties and bloodshed, high stakes. So I'm interested to see what that's going to look like and what the reception is going to be on that book. And then Rouge by Mona Awad I also wanted to chat about because the last time we spoke about it, I don't think there was a synopsis out. No one had gotten arcs of it. We kind of didn't know what was going on besides the fact that it was called Rouge and it was by Mona Awad, which was enough to make it one of my most anticipated reads of 2023. But now we do have more information about it. So it looks like it's going to be mainly centered on beauty. I think the beauty industry and also just beauty as a concept. Mona Awad just always writes the most strange and entertaining things, and I'm really excited to see what she does next. Okay, this next one I don't want to spend a lot of time on because it's my most disappointing read and I don't like to be negative, so I didn't love Shady Hollow and I really wanted to, and that's why I think this stands out as something that was really disappointing because I really wanted to love this. The cover is beautiful, the concept is fantastic. It's a really long series. I think there's like 3 or 4 books in it and there's more coming out. We're following this reporter, Vera Vixen, as she tries to solve this crime. And I just found all the characters to be incredibly two-dimensional and flat and archetypal, and not in a fun way. I think Lucy Foley does archetypes in a really fun way, like with the guest list, where she's got like the bride and the +1. Everyone has these archetypes, and it feels fun. This didn't feel fun to me. The characters just didn't feel three-dimensional to me. I didn't have a good time. I ended up having to get this on audiobook because I could not force myself to read it physically. I was going to DNF, and I really didn't want to DNF, and I wanted to push through. So I got the audiobook, I pushed through. I probably should have just DNF'd. I didn't enjoy it. I'm done talking about it. Biggest surprise in a good way was Happy Place by Emily Henry. I had planned to read this. It was on my most anticipated list, but I hadn't planned to like go out and buy it on release day. I wasn't going to pay $30 for the hardcover, but I did reserve it for my library and my hold came in fairly quickly and I absolutely fell in love with it. I just had such a good time. I had read Beach Read by Emily Henry before, which I think is kind of widely known to be like her best book. Most people tend to like that one if they like an Emily Henry. So I read that one and I really enjoyed it, but it was one of the first romance books that I had read. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I just don't have good taste in romance. I probably don't need to read people on vacation and book lovers. But when Happy Place came out, I thought I'll give it a go. I loved it. It made me feel so nostalgic. I'm at this point in my life where I've moved away from most of my friend groups. Like I live in a different state to all of my college friends. I live in a different state to all of my childhood friends, my high school friends. And I'm really missing those connections and those really close-knit groups that come from living and working and studying together. So watching this friend group that met in college that used to live together, who now live far apart from each other, coming together for this one last weekend felt really nostalgic to me in the same way that like Catherine House did when I was missing college. That book really made me feel nostalgic about it and was written in a nostalgic view. And I think Happy Place is like that as well. It was the perfect book at the perfect time for me. The setup of the book is a little bit unrealistic. There's a miscommunication thing that I didn't love, but I honestly just didn't care because I was having such a fun time the whole way through. Favorite new author is definitely Becky Chambers with The Monk and the Robot duology, and then I've also been reading my way through the Wayfarers series. There are 4 books in this series. I've now read the first 3 and have really loved them. And then Allie and I from Alice in Pages just buddy read To Be Taught If Fortunate, which is another novella by Becky Chambers that I also really loved, which means that I've now read most of Becky Chambers' work and loved all of it, so definitely solidified herself as a new favorite author for me. Then we have my new favorite character, which is Murderbot. I just think it takes a special skill, a special talent as an author to make a human robot character just so relatable. It's so dark and funny and self-deprecating and honest, and there's such big questions that we're grappling with here about like what it means to be human and AI, especially since AI has kind of been taking over our life. I just really love the Murderbot character, and I think that's why I'm so excited to pick up more from Martha Wells, because like I said, the humor, I think, and the way the character is set up reminds me a lot of Murderbot in here, so I'm really excited to see if that's true, but really loved this character. Next is a book that made me cry. It is not hard to make me cry. If you wanted to make me cry with a book and you were an author, all you have to do is have characters. I don't have to like them. I don't have to relate to them. They just need something bad to happen to them. And then the bad thing won't make me cry. The thing that will make me cry is if someone in their life, after a bad thing happens to them, if someone in their life is nice to them and comes through for them and is compassionate towards them, immediately I will start sobbing. So it's not hard. But the book that made me cry the most was A Man and His Cat. My cat went missing a couple months ago. I read this shortly after that happened. Reread, I should say. This is my second or third time reading this. This is just a really adorable manga about this man who is grieving. He adopts this cat that no one else wants to adopt, and they just have so much love for each other. This man has never owned a cat before. He doesn't know what he's doing. He makes mistakes, but they just have so much love for each other, and they're helping each other, and it's just such a sweet and pure story. If you have owned a cat, if you love cats, you will love this. I guarantee it. Then to balance it out, we have a book that made me happy. A lot of things make me happy, but I wanted to choose something that I was kind of like surprised that it made me happy, so I've picked The Writing Retreat. This is a thriller. People die in this. It's a darker book. It's so over the top that it was just so much fun to read. I am one of those people who loves an over the top thriller. I feel like you either love or hate over the top thrillers, and I definitely love them. I want all of the absurd thriller recommendations in the comments, please. And I think The Writing Retreat specifically was just such a perfect book for what I love to read in books. It kind of feels a little So Happy for You in the way that we're really focused on this one female friendship, and a large portion of the book is really centered on that friendship. And then we also are going to this writing retreat. Our main character has this author that she really looks up to. It's her favorite author, really got her into being a writer. And she goes to this writing retreat at her house, and things get really weird really fast, and I loved how over the top it got towards the end. But before it gets super over the top, we are at this writing retreat. It's this group of women who are writing these books together, and I really love just like the process of following them in their writing process. And then the book that our main character is writing is a horror book that is set in the house that they are staying at, and it's got all this history that she's learning about the house itself, and I found that to be incredibly enjoyable as someone who also loves reading horror. It ended up feeling like a mix-up of a lot of different genres that I really love. Then we have the most beautiful book that I had bought this year. I think this cover is absolutely genius. This is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. If you haven't picked up an R.F. Kuang yet and you've been wanting to try her stuff, but her books are intimidating because they are really long or fantasy, this is a really good option. It's a shorter book, and it's not fantasy, it's contemporary, but it still really feels like an R.F. Kuang. It's got her writing style, it's got her R.F. Kuang-isms that I find to be so interesting. Like all of her other books, it's really smart. This book is a scathing look at the publishing industry. We're following this woman. She has this friend who's been super successful in her writing career, and our main character has not been successful. And her friend shows her this new manuscript that she's just completed. She's the only one who's seen it. Her friend dies that night right in front of her. And this tragic and kind of absurd way. And then she ends up stealing her manuscript, and she ends up changing her name to be more ethnically ambiguous so she can steal her friend's manuscript. The book is called Yellowface for a reason. I think the cover is absolutely genius, and the inside matches how beautiful and how intelligent the cover is. Books I need to read by the end of the year. I'm only giving myself one. It is My Best Friend's Exorcism. I've loved every Grady Hendrix that I have read. I bought this, I think, almost a year ago. I think I bought it in the fall, and it's set in the summertime. I bought it knowing that I wanted to read it during Summerween. Summerween is next month. I need to read this next month. Please hold me accountable. I need to read this during Summerween. It's a horror book set in the summer. It's perfect for Summerween. This is my goal. I think last year I talked about a lot of things that I've been like putting off that I really wanted to finish. I never finished any of those books. This, I know I can finish. This is a goal I can complete. It's got all the elements of a SMART goal. I have faith that I can finish this before the end of the year. I'm gonna do it in July, promise. 2 last questions. First is my favorite video or post that I've made so far this year. And I think my favorite video is the Cozy Fantasy video that I did. I have been absolutely loving Cozy Fantasy. So I did this vlog where I read like 10 Cozy Fantasy books that I was interested in. I had such a good time doing that I just wanted to read more Cozy Fantasy. I ended up going and looking for recommendations, and I kept seeing the same like 3 or 4 things recommended over and over again. I really wanted to read more Cozy Fantasy and be able to recommend more Cozy Fantasy, because I ended up posting this TikTok with some Cozy Fantasy I had already read. It ended up getting a lot of traction, and that kind of made me realize that, oh, other people also want this same thing. Other people are also looking for recommendations for this newer genre. So I ended up doing a video, I'll link it in the description and in the cards, where I recommended like over 30 Cozy Fantasy. I think that's probably how a lot of you found my channel, which is really cool because I'm really proud of that video. So I'm glad that was a lot of people's first introduction to my channel, and that it was a nice cozy time. So I am really, really proud of that video. And also just, I feel like I've really been hitting my stride and finding what my editing style is, especially with vlogs. I've been really enjoying doing vlogs. They're a ton of work to edit and film, but I just absolutely have the most fun time filming and editing them and letting you see the doggies and hanging out with me in my life. And I've just really been enjoying doing YouTube. The last question is favorite book community members. I'm bringing the laptop over here because I have a lot of people to talk to you about. Everyone in the description, after you're done here, go check all of their channels out. I have really big creators that you've probably heard of on here. I have some smaller creators that you might not have heard of. I am 100% sure that there are people that I love that I have forgotten to put on this list. There are just so many amazing creators out there. But of course, I'm always looking for more new people to watch. So if you have recommendations, definitely put them in the comments. If you're a creator yourself, let me know in the comments. Drop your channel. I would love to check you out. Okay, first up we have Jen C. Reads. I really have been loving her videos, just found her very, very recently. Shaughnessy Schroeder is an influencer on Instagram, and I think also on TikTok. She has a really big following on those platforms. But she also has a YouTube channel where she's been doing a lot of booktube content, and I've really been enjoying her vlogs on there. I just found her again. Zoe Cedar, I think she took a little bit of a break from filming, but she's just started posting stuff again, and I really hope she continues because I really want to watch more of her stuff. Hardback Hoarder, I've really been loving her videos. A Life of Poetry does really cozy vlogs. She's also an illustrator and a writer, as well as a reader, and I've been really enjoying her videos. I think I told you guys this last year, Allie from Allison Pages is my favorite booktuber. Like I said, we recently just buddy read a book together, the Becky Chambers novella, and that was really fun to make a friend through YouTube, especially someone whose videos I love and look up to as a creator. So that was a really great experience. Thank you, Allie, for being my friend. Other creators that I love, Sid Bookworm. She's been doing some really cool, like, weird words series where she reads books with her husband. They're reading the Ice Planet Barbarian series, and I just found those to be incredibly funny videos. Riley Marie, I watch everything that she puts out. Sarah Without an Age has been putting out such entertaining videos recently. If you want to just laugh out loud and have a fantastic time while watching a booktube video, go watch her, I'll put it in the description, her Monster Smut video. It was just a really good time. Kayla from Books and Lala, again, I watch everything that she puts out. Locked Booktician has really great videos. Books with Emily Fox, her cat that she adopted just had kittens. They're absolutely adorable. Lena Norms, in addition to book content, also does a lot of like sustainability, climate stuff, which I really enjoyed. I love joining Jessica Nicole Dickerson's reading sprints. Jess Owens, I love her book community posts where she talks about Twitter. I'm not on Twitter, so I really love watching her videos to stay up to date with what's going on because I can't be on Twitter. It's not good for my mental health, so I like being able to stay in the know. Meg with Books always has really entertaining videos. Peruse Project always has great fantasy recs. Reading Riley, I've been loving her videos. Mina reads has really great romance recs, especially Olivia reads a latte, and Gabby reads. I'm really excited for Summerween next month. Books like Whoa, Christiane Jones, Noelle 7 Pages, Noelle Gallagher, Alexander Rosalind, Booked and Busy. How to Train Your Gavin has been doing these really high concept, super long videos that I've been loving. And One for the Books just started rebuilding out her van. She's going on like this van life journey in addition to book content. So I'm really excited to follow that. And then I also have some non-booktube creators that I've absolutely been loving. So Rachel Maxey and Nerdforge are both like makers. So Rachel Maxey does a lot of like sewing, fashion, cosplay stuff. If you like gaming content, my childhood best friend just recently started posting again on her YouTube channel. I absolutely love her, so if you like gaming content, go check out Hannah Lee Games. Sierra Schultze just started posting on her main channel again. I love her vlogs, but her main channel comeback has been so amazing. She's been doing these videos that I kind of see everywhere, like the videos where people are doing color analysis, but I feel like it's so much more nuanced because it's not just her doing them, it's a group of people that work for her or her friends come on and they all kind of do these experiences together. They did the color analysis, they just did a treadmill desk one, they also did like a bra fitting one that was really interesting. I've been loving that recently. The 20 Whatever podcast that they do as well has been really enjoyable. I really like Melanie Murphy's content. She's also an author and sometimes does book content on there. I love Hannah Louise Poston's content. I am not someone who watches beauty content, but I love watching her videos. She talks about loving beautiful things and consuming things really intentionally, and I think that that is a form of content that we don't get enough of, and so I just love watching her videos. Furry Little Peach is an artist in Australia who has just the most aesthetic videos. They're always just so well done. I watch every single thing that she posts as soon as she posts it. And Hannah Witten is an amazing sex education channel. And that's it. We did it. We made it through the mid-year freakout tag. I would love to hear your answers to any of these questions in the comments. I'll put all the questions in the description so that you can answer them if you don't have a channel. If you do have a channel and you have done this video, let me know, link it in the comments. I would love to go watch yours. My absolute favorite thing about being on BookTube is the community and making friends and watching other people's videos. And I love creators where we'll watch each other's videos and comment. It's just so much fun. And that's it. That's all I have for you. If this is your first time to my channel and you want to check out some other stuff, I've got a couple videos over here that YouTube and I think that you might enjoy. And if after hearing all of my favorite things that I've read in the first half of this year, if you think our reading tastes might be compatible and you want to subscribe, I would love for you to join our little community over here. I post every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, so I will see you again very soon. Bye.